welcome you on into another episode of the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. It's Mitch Spinell here for a solo show here at the end of this week for Big Time Sports. Mitch Balla is off this week. We'll be back again next week to give you guys a list of what's going on in the sporting world. I'm happy to join you guys here. I'm happy if you're listening in on one of our podcasting platforms, Apple Podcasts and Spotify, courtesy of Spotify for podcasters. If you're watching our YouTube, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell, or check us out on our website, bigtimesportsohio.com, and all of our social media platforms later on in the show. So with that, we want to get into what's kind of been going on this past week here in the fall side of high school sports in the area of Tuscarawas County. A lot of stuff has been going on this week. Obviously, we have the last batch of preseason games in football already getting underway or complete before we get into week one of the regular season upcoming here on Big Time Sports, as well as the rest of the state here. We want to talk to you guys though about what's been going on in the early stages of the fall sports season, and that is golf. A lot of stuff has been going on the boys and girls sides of the Inter Valley Conference, the OCC obviously for New Philadelphia, Dover's in the mix there as well, and of course the Stark County area. So I want to start off here in the IVC, where the girls' side right now has been dominated by the likes of the Garaway Pirates. The Pirates have gone in and won 4 straight tournaments to open the season. They started off by shooting a school record 300 team total in the Inter Valley Conference preseason tournament at Hickory Flats to start off on August 5th. On August 7th, the Pirates took the Lady Pirate Invitational at Zor Golf Club by shooting a 304, well beyond the likes of your Indian Valleys and your Claremonts and all the other schools that were competing. On August 9th, they played again at Hickory Flats in the Riverview Invitational and beat second place Sheridan by 26 shots. They also won the Flo Bar Invitational at Meadow Lake Golf Club by shooting a 327, nearly 100 shots ahead of East Canton in second place. North Royalton, Ridgewood, and Strasburg in that mix as well. We also had some other very competitive girls teams in the mix here, such as Dover, who beat Indian Valley on Friday at Zor by a total of 194 to 212. Obviously, with golf, less strokes means a victory for the Tornadoes over the Braves. So a very good start to the girls' side so far this season. As far as the men's side goes, Garaway's also been competitive this year. Garaway has always been a team that's been very competitive in golf throughout the last decade or so, obviously taking a couple of trips to the state tournament. And this team this year has looked pretty solid and might be the front runner early on in the IVC this season. They won the Pirate Invitational at Black Gold, formerly known as Willendale, on August 5th with a 3-stroke victory over New Philadelphia, who's also been very competitive this year in the OCC and beyond. They also beat the likes of Holman, Highlands, Steubenville, Hoover, Indian Valley, West Holmes, Carrollton. Carrollton, 2 years removed from their state run, is going to be very competitive again this year, possibly. But Garaway was able to take the victory with a 312 team total. Now, at the Indian Valley Early Bird Invitational on August 7th at River Greens, it was New Philadelphia that ended up shooting the 300 team total to finish just 2 strokes ahead of John Glenn for the victory. Maysville, Indian Valley, and Carrollton rounded out 3rd, 4th, and 5th, respectively, with a couple of other teams there in the mix. Indian Valley's red team, by the way, their backup team, shot a 348 to finish in 6th place. So keep an eye on the Braves this year in the IVC South. We also had a couple of individual matches on August 8th on Great Trail. Malvern beat Claremont 167 to 213. Malvern has some pretty good golfers there in the mix. And then on August 10th at the IVC preseason at Great Trail, it was Highland getting their revenge against Garaway, 311 team total to the Pirates 317. Indian Valley was at 318, just behind in 3rd place. Malvern posted a 4th place finish of 338. Malvern and Strasburg are going to be very interesting to see in the IVC North this year because the Tigers finished 5th at 340. They have one of the top individual golfers in the league in Trenton Biddicoffer, who the other day, I believe, just posted an even par 36 in a match for the Tigers. He's been a very good golfer for the last couple of years, especially possibly this season. And then yesterday we saw Indian Valley beat Claremont 155 to 192. So a lot of stuff has been going on the links here in the area. I want to get your guys' takes on everything that's been going on in the golf world. Obviously, you can comment here. You can add us on Twitter at Mitch Spinell or at Mitchell Balla or X or whatever it's called now. Obviously at BTS Ohio on Twitter. So you look for our posts there and comment on our posts to see what's the latest in the golfing world. And obviously we'll get into the other sports here next week. So when we come back, I want to go over what's been going on in the football world, specifically what happened in Cleveland last night as the Browns took on the Commanders. Stay with us. Hey Stark County, it's your friends from the local Board of Mental Health and Addiction Recovery, and we have a challenge for you. We're asking you to create a new habit and check in on someone every day. Nothing fancy, just a simple text, phone call, or note on social media to ask someone how they're doing. You don't have to be a professional, you just have to ask and then listen. Are you someone who could use a check-in? Text 4HOPE to 741-741 anytime, day or night, or dial 988. Brought to you by Stark County Mental Health and Addiction Recovery.
Wendy's without the Wendy's app is like Nugs without the sauce. Or a Frosty without the fries. Or a hamburger without the fresh beef. No! Level up. Get the app to order ahead, order delivery, earn free food, and get app-exclusive offers. One app, all the Wendy's.
Offer for a limited time at participating Wendy's. Terms apply. App registration required. Fresh beef available in the contiguous U.S., Alaska, and Canada.
You deserve the best. And at Ferris Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, Toyota, that's what you get. We consider you, the customer, to be part of our family. Anybody can make promises, but when you visit Ferris, you get the Ferris deal from a Ferris wheel. So if you're looking for a car, truck, or van, think Ferris.
Think Ferris. Where you matter.
You matter. Everyone plays a part. We all have a role. Each of us can make a difference. You do matter, and the best way to have a positive impact is to pay it forward. With each of us helping one another to cope, feel better, and know that we belong. Pass on the positivity today. Tell someone else they matter too. All care.
All care, all care. Where you matter.
You invest a lot in your home and vehicle purchases. Van Nostrand Young & Associates want you to feel secure should anything happen to those investments. We partnered with providers like Grange Insurance and other industry leaders to be sure you're presented with the most complete coverage to fit your needs. Because we're not only here to protect the items you invest in, we're here to protect your future as well.
Call Van Nostrand Young Insurance in North Canton at 330-497-1867.
Happy Sardiversary from AllCare. We're celebrating 25 years with our partners in the community. Here's Mike Galena.
SARTA and AllCare, side by side, both providing a great service to our local community. Where the two connect best is where SARTA is able to get our clients and members to their prescriptions, their health care, all the needs that they have that otherwise they may let go.
Thanks to our community partners as we celebrate SARTA 2-5 at SARTA.
And welcome you back here to the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. And we now want to transition over to the National Football League, where last night got off to a late start over at First Energy Stadium as the Browns, fresh off the Hall of Fame game win last week over the New York Jets, now take on the Washington Commanders on a Friday night that, as we said before, got off to a late start because of the weather delay. I ended up being in the city around until 1:30 in the morning last night just to be able to get all my stuff completed. And, you know, last night, kind of a messy one. I'm not even talking about the field conditions after the rain came, and just a messy game all around. A game in which, you know, it's obviously the preseason and the scores. It's like on Whose Line Is It Anyway? Drew Carey would always say the points don't matter. In the game, points in this game doesn't matter. Like some sort of joke that I'm trying to think of now. I have one joke in mind, but I can't say it on the air. But in the meantime, the Browns started off decently. I think the defense had some good moments early on in the first quarter or so last night. I really liked what I was seeing from like the pass rush. Darius Smith had a very good run towards the end to get Sam Howell on the penalty that led to the holding call. A couple of guys were really showing out in there. And then Deshaun Watson, first action of the preseason this year, looked fine, completed most of his passes, looked much more comfortable than he did early on last part of the season when he was able to come back from suspension. But from there, it just kind of feels like the team couldn't quite get some things done that really frustrated fans last season. As you might hear the tornado siren here going off right now. The first drive of the game, offensive drive of the game for Cleveland, which they get down to the 1 yard line on fourth down and they can't convert again. I know John Kelly's in there. Usually you'd have the likes of Nick Chubb or somebody else in there, but it's still frustrating to see this team, like with all this work in the offseason, still have some struggles early on to put the ball in the end zone when you get into the red zone. And look, when it happened last night, I thought, okay, we have our fodder for this week. We have our fodder to talk about on the podcast, on the radio shows, and then possibly in the television, and even some points of the broadcast last night with the likes of Jim Donovan and Nathan Zagura on call on the radio, and then the television guys up front with Chris Rose and Joe Thomas. Cade York is a question mark for Cleveland right now. I think when you saw Cade get drafted and you saw the potential he had, and you saw the potential that could grow from the game-winning kick he had last year against the Carolina Panthers, the game that tricked us into thinking, oh, this is going to be the Browns' year. We thought with all the problems we were going to have at that point, not having Deshaun Watson as our quarterback yet, still kind of wondering what we were going to do with the running back system, what receivers we would have going into the year, what our defense is going to do, and eventually would struggle. We thought, okay, we have our kicker. After years of guys just not being able to get it early on in their careers, getting shipped out to another team, and then some of them finding success later on in their careers with the likes of Greg Zuerlein, Zane Gonzalez, another one for Arizona a few years later, who was a better kicker than he was in Cleveland. It's just frustrating to see for the second straight game, Cade York coming down with a case of Steve Sachs syndrome. And the sort of it's got to be mental right now because the guy has talent. The guy can boot the ball from 60 to 70 yards. He just can't put it through the uprights right now. And you see the report of him apparently leaving the locker room right before the media gets in after last night's game. He's frustrated right now. And I'm fine with Kevin Stefanski saying that, there's no hesitancy or concern over the kick over York at this moment, but eventually you have to wonder if this is going to be a season-long problem this year, because I think that with the Browns, what you don't want to do is panic on a guy. You don't want to have a guy who's so broken at a point that he can't recover, but you also don't want to give up on a guy too early on and allow a team to just kind of swoop in and be able to take advantage of a situation that the Browns weren't able to. But other than that, there were some offensive flurries last night. The defense really let the team down in the second quarter when you had a couple of turnovers there, and then you let Sam Howell throw a touchdown to an open receiver, and then Jacoby Brissett obviously helped out the Browns a lot last year as the starter, then back to backup. He rushes in for a rollout touchdown, and all of a sudden you're down 14-2, which isn't a great look against the Commanders team that we've been seeing some headlines about the Commanders this year. We saw the thing about their announcer being arrested for fraud. We saw the thing about Ron Rivera and Eric Bieniemy. But I think that's more so a media habit rather than, or maybe it's a Washington habit per se, because with the new ownership coming in, you think this is a new fresh start for a Washington team that's really trying to find the identity that it had way back in the days and even into the 80s and 90s. But we're still so used to the sort of Dan Snyder-esque era headlines where it's like, oh, Washington signed a guy that won't even run his sprints in practice. Oh, they had a fight in the locker room. Oh, they have the ownership doing this illegal stuff. Oh, this player's not getting it done. Oh, this player's signing somewhere else. We're kind of just used to it. And it's kind of a similar thing with the Browns pre Kevin Stefanski, pre Andrew Berry. And some people would even say around this era as well. I wouldn't be one of those people, but to where it's kind of just easy to be like, oh, there's the Browns again. It's the same old Browns. It's the same old Washington team. I'm kind of like, okay, first of all, we're 2 games into this preseason and they still have time to hash things out. I liked what I saw from the offense later on in the game. Obviously, you saw a touchdown being thrown later on in the third quarter. Was it third quarter or fourth quarter? Either one, to David Bell late in the game. You also had a very outstanding defensive performance from Ronnie Hickman, who had 2 interceptions. One was on a Hail Mary towards the end of the first half. The other one was a legitimate one that he ripped out of the guy's hands to stave off a Washington drive in the red zone. So I like that an undrafted guy like Hickman is really trying to make a name for himself and trying to find himself on this team at the end of final cuts. Now, will he be there? I don't know for sure. There's just some things we have to hash out in the last 2 games before we get into this upcoming regular season here. So I'm very curious as to what will be of the Browns in a couple weeks' time before we head into that regular season opener against the Cincinnati Bengals. So when we come back, we'll go over more into the sporting world, getting some baseball talk, maybe even some college football talk. Stay with us. It is now time for another segment of Fuel, Move, Recover, featuring Dr. Iono, physical therapist and president of Advancing Athletics. Doc, thank you so much for taking the time to join me again this week.
Appreciate it, Mitch. How are you?
Doing fantastic, man. I want to go over some more topics with you regarding the areas of nutrition, of exercise, and recovery, some vital parts of a lot of people's daily movements, and of course, our student athletes here in the area. So I want to go over the fuel side of things first. We had a bit of a touch on that last week where a lot of kids are getting back into the mix of playing sports. Obviously, they're going to be wanting to keep themselves healthy throughout the remainder of the season. And you have a very good piece coming up here on advancingathletics.com regarding the importance of nutrition and the sort of essential components of how people can contain their keep their nutrition in check. Kind of take me through that and the importance of each component.
Yeah, absolutely, Mitch. First and foremost, it's important for all of our listeners to appreciate that this is not medical advice, and we're talking generally about concepts that apply to most athletes. But if you're having individual troubles with either cramps or injuries or, any kind of more serious medical disordered eating or any of these, we're going to be talking about all kinds of subjects, body related, nutrition related. Definitely, we recommend you seeking medical advice from either your primary care physician or a physical therapist you trust. And we'll talk about contact info at the end, but I'm always happy to help if I can either clarify these answers or get you the help that you need. So in regards to nutrition, what we talked about last week is just, kind of like the highlights of, taking care of yourself, make sure you're fueled, hydrated and whatnot, and in regards to pregame routines, I think it's time for us to start to think about, I know golf is in full swing, football's starting to have scrimmages, the other sports are as well, that you need to find what works right for you. So if you play football, Mitch, and I play or run cross country, our demands are going to be much different. The sensitivity of your stomach and the time that you have between your last fueling event and the beginning of competition, those are all really important factors that'll come into play. And before games is not when you want to do that experimentation. You want to do that while you're training, during practice, find out what your stomach likes and doesn't like, and then stick to that. The other really important thing is a energy crash will come fast and hard and usually at the exact worst time. So pre-workout has become a substance that a lot of people know about that's becoming really popular. And what they're really a lot of the power of pre-workout substances is the caffeine and energy boost. And obviously, if you're having this artificial energy boost, you're going to have that crash usually when you're in the game, getting towards halftime, and it's almost impossible to recover from that. And plus, on top of that, we are concerned about what substances are actually in these mixes that you can purchase over the counter at Walmart, GNC, or whatever. So in general, think about how many calories you need, the demand of your sport. So we always had a really big meal whenever I had a football game, because I don't like to eat. I never like to eat. I even do not like to eat while I'm working out now. So I usually try to keep it light and usually keep it liquid during the actual events or competitions, and then have that big meal beforehand because my stomach could handle it. But if you're a runner or maybe you have a sensitive stomach, that might be something to consider. And finally, remember that when you get to the game, like your fate has been sealed. You can't go back and redo that nutrition that you missed or the hydration that you missed when the game is going on or the competition is about to begin. So an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Make sure you're taking care of yourself during the week or between games if you have multiple games a week.
Well, as far as, kids will be moving multiple times throughout this week, throughout the remainder of the season, it's important to get these habits back into play, Doctor, whenever you're talking about whatever sport you play, whatever factors that go into each individual athletic system go. I'm curious as to get your take on the body developing these sort of habits throughout the beginning of the season, throughout the remainder of it, and how important it can be for you to develop what you have written here as physical and movement literacy for just getting out and moving.
Yeah. And one other thing too, we'll touch on this at the end, but we have a lot of resources available on our website, our own podcast, the Fuel Move Recover show, and which is currently on hiatus, but there's a lot of really good resources that you can utilize there to hear about these topics more in depth. The biggest thing is think about why you practice. We're trying to play make-believe. We're trying to either recreate or simulate the demands of the competition itself, so that mentally, physically, you're able to perform the skills, the demands of the sport itself without being limited by your physical or mental capacity. And so sometimes, yeah, I can do this, it's like shooting free throws with you and I at in my driveway versus when we have a screaming crowd. That's just a really good example. Or going to kick field goals. And yeah, you can do it when the stadium's empty, but what are you going to do when the game's on the line? And then that carries across to every single sport and every single competition or competitive situation. So just think about what are the demands of your sport, and we want to reinforce mantras. So where I put my hands, where I put my feet. And I'm always thinking about that when I'm warming up before practices, when I'm doing my dynamic warm-ups before competitions. And then you can use, whether you're doing this with your parents, with your coaches, or with your teammates, you're taking how you perform in practice, team drills, or simulated competition. And then how can I incorporate those mistakes and highlight the successes in order to better perform for that next competition? And so that's what everybody should be really focusing on now, whenever we're ramping up to the beginning of the season. And we'll talk more about this in our last segment, but really, what's the goal? The goal is how you perform at the end of the year, not in August. No championships are won in August. So those championships are won in September and October, and obviously in November for many sports.
Yeah, and throughout the rest of the season, these kids are going to be going over a lot of drills, a lot of physical programs. And with that, you definitely want to recover, and you definitely want to get some time to be able to help build your body even when you're not in movement. Via the Fuel Move Recover system, Doctor, you say you address stress via 3 domains. Kind of take us through those and how important it is for kids to kind of be able to settle down amidst all the high energy, high octane activities they may be going through this season.
A little bit of background. The reason why we kind of came up with Fuel Move Recover, our platform, is that, my team and I, we're all clinicians, meaning, we all have medical degrees of some kind, and we would work with athletes that just kicked butt in one area, and usually in the area that, they came to us or their parents brought them to us for. But we saw these limitations in other areas. So typically, we talk about recovery as really stress management. So it's learning how to deal with the physical side of stress. And stress has a bad reputation. They need like a new PR department, because when a lot of people hear stress, they think of it immediately as the bad parts. But stress is just workload. It's challenging yourself in one way or the other. So we talk about physical stress, mental stress, and then the management of that stress in and of itself. So the physical stress is obviously the wear and tear from actually practicing, repeating movements, weight training, running, hitting, all those kind of things. That's probably the most obvious one, how the body kind of tells you what you need in order to recover. The physical stress, or more so, we maybe a better way to think of it is like passive stress. So active stress is when you do these things and and then there's a one-to-one effect on it. And then the passive stress is things like, you stay up too late, you're playing video games, you have a test, you just didn't sleep well, you're hot, you don't have air conditioning in your house. There's a down the road kind of accumulation of that lack of good recovery. And sleep is the one we talk about all the time. Also, decision triage is something that's important, Mitch. And I know a lot of kids that they'll go to practice, they'll do weight training, strength conditioning with their team, and then they'll go to the gym afterwards. Well, if you had a hard practice and you're really tired, and you would usually go to the gym after this particular workout, and you're really kind of feeling the effects, you could tell you weren't quite hitting your routes if you're playing football, or your times were off at cross country. Well, a decision triage would tell us that you should probably go home and get extra rest, maybe do some foam rolling, take a nice bath, and then just kind of get to bed early instead of going to going to the gym after that to get another workout in. Finally, stress management is just the whole part about how you take care of these feelings you have, how stressed you feel mentally, how sore you are physically. And that's where we really advocate, or better said, that we really encourage athletes to be advocates for themselves. So you will do no good for your team, especially when championships are won later in the year, if you're playing hurt or you can't perform your job. So the best way to lose your role on the team is to do your role poorly. And if you are doing it injured, or you go from being injured to hurt to hurt to injured, well, that's a great way to lose your spot. And at the end of the day, you have to perform. And so being mindful of the decisions you make and how you manage that stress is really what it's all about, to not only perform well, but also feel well.
Doctor, where can those who are listening or watching this podcast find you and your services for advancing athletics?
Yeah. So as I said before, you mentioned it, advancingathletics.com. You can find me on social media at Michele Iono, and it's spelled not like it sounds, because it's Italian, but we'll make sure to add that information later. And then you can follow Advancing Athletics on Facebook and Instagram just by searching the company name. So like I said, lots of resources, podcasts available, and I'm happy to either give you more detailed questions, any of our listeners, on any of these topics that we discussed today and in future weeks.
Absolutely. Doctor, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you, Mitch.
Vive Auto Sales, located on West High Avenue in New Philadelphia and Cleveland Avenue in Canton, is a used car dealership committed to getting financing for everyone. We give every customer that walks in our showrooms a prime buying experience, no matter their credit score or financial situation. Current inventory can be viewed at www.wefinancenow.com. Check out our Facebook pages for the most up-to-date information about upcoming events and promotions happening at Vive Auto Sales.
Are you trying to increase your speed, quickness, vertical leap, and agility? If so, NST Sports Performance is for you. NST trains athletes ages 5 through pro. NST designs each program specific to the athlete's needs, goals, and sports. For more, visit nstsports.com. Locations in North Canton and New Philadelphia. It's nstsports.com.
If you're looking for a new or pre-owned car or truck, why not see the Parkway Auto Group? Parkway is a special group of automotive experts with 8 brands to satisfy your needs. Come see the difference at the Parkway Auto Group on Commercial Parkway in Dover. 8 brands and 1 family. It's Parkway Auto Group.
The Furby Electric Supply Company has bright ideas for your home. Save money by converting to energy-efficient electrical products or add ambiance with beautiful lighting features. It begins with a professional consultation and a visit to the Furby Lighting Showroom. Then certified Furby contractors complete your project right and on time. Since 1934, 4 generations have built a reputation of quality and trust, and they offer emergency services too. Just visit Furby.com. That's F-U-R-B-A-Y. The Furby Electric Supply Company.
It takes a lot of practice to have a winning team. Albin Title has over 100 years of combined experience handling real estate, title, and escrow transactions. They serve Tuscarawas, Stark, Carroll, Harrison counties, and more. So choose Albin Title for your next home refinance, sale, or purchase. They'll get it done quickly and professionally. Contact Albin Title at 330-334-5800 or visit their website albintitle.com. Let them put their experience to work for you.
We all have 206 things in common. Our bones keep us up and moving. And we at Cleveland Clinic Union Hospital care about every single one of them. From the tip of your finger to a brand new hip, our orthopedic experts will keep you going while keeping you safe. For every break and breakthrough, for every bone and joint, for every care in the world. Get the care you need when and where you need it. Visit unionhospital.org.
Fall is in the air and part-time career enhancement courses at Buckeye Career Center are on the horizon. Registration is now open for Introduction to Beekeeping, Basic Small Engine Repair, and Sign Language. These part-time offerings run on Tuesday evenings and begin in November. Let Buckeye Career Center help you learn a new skill or advance your current skill set. Call 330-339-2288 for more information or to reserve your seat in one of these or our other part-time classes.
And we're back here on the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. I mean, we're going over Guardians talk now. First of all, before we get into the Guardians talk, I posted this one article the other day on sorry about that, on one of my job sites the other day for 92.3 The Fan and Odyssey. And it was an article regarding the Guardians' win on Thursday against the Toronto Blue Jays. You see, Noah Syndergaard earns first win with the Guardians in series finale over Blue Jays. Well, get a couple of likes in here. Obviously, one of my from our own Big Time Sports. And Heidi Syndergaard, Noah Syndergaard's mother. I'm assuming that's a real account, and if it's not, then I just got trolled here. But if it is a real account, there, that is such a it's one of those what a small world sort of thing that you get to experience there. So I mean, shout out to Mrs. Syndergaard, I guess. I don't know, but in the meantime, I want to talk Guardians because it did just come off the series against the Blue Jays. The bullpen let us down again in Tampa Bay, where you get back from an 8-5 deficit in the ninth inning, and then Nick Stanley gives it the home run to the Rays, and that's another loss. The bullpen really struggled this week too against Toronto, where you saw in the first two games, Guardians get one, Blue Jays get the other one, to where the Guardians couldn't buy a hit or buy a run for about 16 consecutive innings at one point. I believe it was from Brian Rocchio's second inning RBI double in game 2 to the end of game 3 on Wednesday, where they just did not score a run and just had some really unfortunate moments. And to the point on Thursday where even though they got the victory, they're up 4-1 in the seventh inning. And then Angel De Los Santos really has been struggling last week, gave up a home run late in the one game the other night where he, according to head pitching coach Carl Willis, he was supposed to throw a fastball. He threw a changeup, and then Kevin Biggio hits one out of there. And then you had Bo Naylor confirming that in the post game. Gives up the 2 runs, nobody out, runners on first and second in the seventh, and then Trevor Stephan has come in. And I do want to give Stephan credit because he has had some low points this year, but he got the job done in that seventh inning. I do say if Springer doesn't get ejected after that called strike 3, I don't know if the Guardians get out of that inning unscathed, because that's such a hard situation to get out of for any relief pitcher, even the top relief pitchers of Major League Baseball. When you see something like that happen, and also John Schneider gets ejected as well, that's such a momentum shift that the fans are able to get into it. And there were a lot of Blue Jays fans along that first base line this week. I went to 3 of the games this weekend, or this last week, and there were some hefty cheers and claps whenever something would happen for Toronto. And you see all the Blue Jays fans down that one first base line. That makes sense because in the dugout, they can interact with the players, but even around the stadium a little bit, I was seeing a lot more royal blue than I was navy blue in the area. I saw the likes of those modern uniforms they have, which are kind of throwbacks, which I do appreciate. And then, of course, I saw the 2000s uniforms as well. Those 2000s uniforms for Tampa Bay, man, I don't know what it is. And I talk a lot about uniforms and past uniforms on here. I'm a big proponent of the website sportslogos.net, Chris Creamer's website, to look up all the different logos and looks beforehand. And we'll get into what happened on Friday in just a bit, but I hate those Blue Jays 2000s uniforms so much. The pre-late 90s ones, the what was that era? Vernon Wells, Lyle Overbay, Roy Halladay, late Roy Halladay, just that slick, sleek, black and silver and like that weird shade of blue that's like not as blue. It's less blue than it is now in Toronto. That was not for me. And I like that they changed. I love that look when they changed it back. What was it, 2012? That I asked my mom for Christmas, that jersey, that blue jersey with my name on the back of it. And I still have that jersey to this day. Obviously it doesn't fit me anymore, but I always like to treasure that one. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. So with that, the Guardians will play again against the Rays tonight. Jose Ramirez's suspension, according to reports today, has been reduced, not lifted completely. It's been reduced from 3 games to 2 games. He will officially get 1/3 of the punishment that Tim Anderson got for their fight last week between the Guardians and the White Sox. That's fine with me. Get Jose back in this lineup. Get some offense back in this lineup. Let's see if we can repeat the success of last night on offense without having to have the struggles in pitching, because I knew that Xavier Curry wasn't going to match up as well compared to Aaron Savali, but Savali didn't have his best stuff in his first start against his former team since the July 31st trade from Cleveland. So I'm kind of on the fence right now. Obviously, the Guardians are just kind of up down this year. So we're just going to take it one day at a time and see where it goes for the rest of the way. All right, we come back. We'll be wrapping up the show. Stay with us. Have you checked in on someone yet today? This is your reminder. A simple text, call, or message. You don't have to be a professional to check in. You just have to ask and listen. Are you someone who could use a check-in? Dial 988 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. A message from Stark County Mental Health and Addiction Recovery.
Wendy's without the Wendy's app is like nugs without the sauce. Or a Frosty without the fries. Or a hamburger without the fresh beef. No! Level up. Get the app to order ahead, order delivery, earn free food, and get app-exclusive offers. One app, all the Wendy's.
Offer for a limited time at participating Wendy's. Terms apply. App registration required. Fresh beef available in contiguous U.S., Alaska, and Canada.
You deserve the best. And at Ferris Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, Toyota, that's what you get. We consider you, the customer, to be part of our family. Anybody can make promises, but when you visit Ferris, you get the Ferris deal from a Ferris wheel. So if you're looking for a car, truck, or van, think Ferris.
Think Ferris. Where you matter.
You matter. Everyone plays a part. We all have a role. Each of us can make a difference. You do matter, and the best way to have a positive impact is to pay it forward. With each of us helping one another to cope, feel better, and know that we belong. Pass on the positivity today. Tell someone else they matter too. Alt Care.
Alt Care, Alt Care. Where you matter.
You invest a lot in your home and vehicle purchases. Van Nostrand Young and Associates want you to feel secure should anything happen to those investments. We partner with providers like Grange Insurance and other industry leaders to be sure you're presented with the most complete coverage to fit your needs. Because we're not only here to protect the items you invest in, we're here to protect your future as well.
Call Van Nostrand Young Insurance in North Canton at 330-497-1867.
Happy Startiversary from iCan Housing. We're celebrating 25 years with our partners in the community. Here's Keith Bialotta and Deanna Stokes-Ellis.
SARTA is important to the workforce development team at iCan Housing, not only to get those individuals coming from homelessness to getting them back into the workforce, but also
to stabilize their housing, to assist with childcare, and utilize community resources.
Thanks to our community partners as we celebrate SARTA 25 at SARTA.
You need to remodel your bath? You need JR Bath Company. Trust in the quality of JR Bath. It's fast, it's safe, and it's affordable. Call today at 1-800-664-2284 or go to jrbath.com. And we're back here on the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. And I really I wanted to save this for next week because when Mitch Balla comes back, I wanted to get his take on what we saw regarding this particular topic. But I want to get it to you guys this week because there is something we wanted to talk about together that I'm going to have to talk about separately. And it is this. The Netflix Untold series of documentaries was just released, I think, last week. And with that, a lot of people in this area were very interested for two things. Number one, I don't know. I shouldn't say that they were very interested in this one, but they had a Netflix Untold about Jake Paul's rise as a boxer. Obviously, Jake Paul is coming off the win against Nate Diaz, and now he's going to keep fighting. I don't think people were as into that one as they were for this upcoming one that I'm going to talk about. But Netflix Untold's Johnny Football that just got released this past week that chronicled the rise and fall of former Heisman Trophy winner Johnny Manziel. It's fine. It's a fine documentary. It's not something that I think you need to rush and see. I wanted to watch it because as Clevelanders, as Cleveland sports fans, We have, of course, a very notable history involving Johnny Manziel that, for some people, they want to forget it. Other ones, they kind of still just bring it up from time to time. And it's reality. We have to live with it. We have to live with the events of it. And he has to live with the events of what was essentially an amazing college run and then a failed NFL career. But I think even he would admit that it just wasn't going to work out in the NFL. There were points in the documentary that were being made about his lack of maturity and progression and preparation for the NFL. Obviously, the big viral clip that went around this week was his agent revealing that the Browns giving him the team's giving him an iPad to study film on. He had the Mr. Blatarski total 0.0 for the amount of hours he'd watched film. Johnny confirms it himself. And a lot of people were sort of like, oh, can you believe like Johnny Manziel didn't watch any film? I went, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. The guy looked like he was completely unprepared, out of his element. According to former Browns players themselves, he just wasn't the guy that was going to go all in on preparation and watching film and getting ready in practice. But, that's kind of how he was in college. In college, he could kind of get away with it. In the NFL, he couldn't. They also kind of go into the sort of effects of Johnny's off the field lifestyle, how he was the big partier and how he still apparently isn't fully sober today. They end not this isn't like a major spoiler, but if you don't want to listen to it, stop now, go watch the doc, come back and watch this. It ends with him, drinking a beer and just kind of showing like, hey, he's still got this sort of side to him that he's not stopping. And even his sister appears on screen and says her brother is not doing well, but they don't really go into it that much. This felt like a very surface level kind of documentary where you're not really learning anything that you don't know already or you didn't already assume. They do kind of go into the sort of struggles that Manziel had involving his addictions. And I even had it read here through SI. Manziel revealed he had planned to party and spend as much of his money as possible before killing himself. He claimed the gun they used to take his life malfunctioned. So that's according to Johnny himself. Obviously, it goes through his flame out in the NFL and the CFL, and it kind of felt like they had to get through these events as quick as possible while also throwing what was supposed to be jaw-dropping bombshells throughout the whole thing. But at the same time, it just kind of felt like, yeah, we've kind of figured it this much. This is the kind of thing that probably deserved a Netflix Untold rather than an ESPN 30 for 30. I will say I gave it 3.5 out of 5 on Letterboxd. It's not a great documentary, but it's fine. I think if it's more so because of my own interest in the subject. If this was like the Jake Paul thing, I'm not really interested in seeing a story about how Jake Paul had to struggle and scrap on the tough streets of Westlake. I'm not really interested in that, but I was interested in seeing maybe if there was something to Johnny that we haven't seen already, but it's kind of the same stuff. I don't hate the guy. I wish him the best, obviously, in trying to deal with what was obviously some very hard demons for him to kind of battle alongside being this major celebrity. It was that sort of toxic mix of being in that sort of state of mind while also having this much money and fame at the exact moment where it all goes together. And I have seen some people being like, well, with Johnny's lack of preparation, even with him not watching film, he still wasn't terrible in the NFL. And I do kind of remember seeing him throw, what was it? 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions during his second year in the NFL. Maybe it was the 2 years. And I thought, okay, let's try to keep him developed. And then you see the photo of him get released with the roll up $20 bill. You see other things come out involving, I think it was his ex-girlfriend, or maybe it was his girlfriend, now wife at the time. Whatever it is, it is what it is. And they had to get rid of him. And that's the way it was. So that's all we have for the Big Time Sports Podcast show today. Obviously, you want to check out the rest of the show. Be sure to check us out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. BigTimeSportsOhio.com at BTS Ohio. You can also check us out on our individual Facebooks, X pages, Instagram. I'm also on Blue Sky and Threads, even though they're both flaming out right now. So yeah, there's that. That's all we have for today. I'll see Mitch Ball again next week. You guys see Mitch Ball again next week. And I'll give you the fact of the day since Mitch is not here. I'll go through all my fun facts over here. Let me see here. Here we go. In a group of 23 people, there is a 50% chance that two people in the group will share the same birthday. Kind of makes sense with all the birthdays in the world. So thank you guys so much for listening or watching the Big Time Sports Podcast Show.